I made this video to give you an inside look into my course on Śāstra and Bhakti, the role of sacred text in Gauḍīya Bhakti. There are 4 different ways you can take this course: by self-study, guided study, group classes, or private classes. All 4 include PDF notes for each session. These notes are also shown in class and in the recorded videos, but I give them to you as separate PDFs as well because they're much more easily studied and referenced in that format. Now I'll show you selected excerpts from the pre-recorded classes. The first subject that Jiva Goswami covers in Tattva Sandarbha is the subject of epistemology. The study of how we get knowledge, in Sanskrit, pramana. So we will say knowledge comes in 3 ways. First of all, it comes by experience. Then it comes by inference, and it also comes by education. So the Sanskrit word for experience is pratyaksha. Aksha literally means eye. Eye stands for all your senses. And prati means it's actually coming to and touching your eye. It's actually coming to your senses. So it means by a direct experience, you get knowledge. Then inference, the second means of getting knowledge, is called anuman. It's something that happens in your manas, in your mind, after you have some experience. So it's anuman, or inference, is a way of putting together experiences to get knowledge about something which you haven't even directly experienced. And the third way is education. Education, the Sanskrit word here is shabda, which literally means a word. So education is passed on through instructions. Instructions come in the form of words. So Mimamsa says that it will use this descending process of epistemology, this educational process, but where the educator, the information coming from the educator doesn't come from somebody's pratyaksha. So Mimamsa presents a different option altogether. It actually says there's another option. You don't have to build your knowledge upward from imperfect observations. You can download it from a perfect observation of a perfect source. So it's proposing that there's a way to get a pure descending method, which isn't built, where the teachers aren't teaching you from their observations and experiments, but the teachers are teaching you from a pure source of flawless knowledge. What does it mean that it's beginningless, first of all? Well, first of all, we should realize that any object, just by its very existence, contains in it knowledge of it. What is knowledge? Knowledge is ultimately pratyaksha, the experience of something. So when something exists, it can be experienced. How is it experienced? By its properties. Like a red cloth has its texture and its color and its size, etc., which are its properties by which you experience its reality. And so these properties are in the object. So by the object existing, as soon as the object exists, the knowledge of it exists. So the knowledge is beginningless. It's co-eternal with the object. Reality itself is just a huge collection of objects. It's a meta-object. And just as objects have properties like redness and softness, etc., this reality meta-object has very, very complex properties by which it can be known. And that's what that's what we try to do when we try to know things. Pratyaksha tries to experience this. Anuman tries to experience it. Shabda tries to tell you about it. All these epistemologies, all these ways of knowing, are ways of trying to get at that the properties of reality, the properties of objects, to know what they are. But with the conventional epistemologies, our access to that beginningless, perfect knowledge is hampered by our imperfection. Instead of us trying to discover the object. If the object could reveal itself to us, that would solve the problem. The Veda is an alternative, is saying this is how these objects can reveal themselves to you through this Veda. The Veda is the way that the beginningless, perfect knowledge, which is inherent in reality itself, manifests to us, reveals to us. Now let's take a little time to explain what a Purana is. One thing that distinguishes a Purana is that it's narrative, which means that it's meant to be narrated. So, or you can say it has like a story format, or it's meant for storytelling or recitation. And they illustrate the philosophical content, the moral content, and the spiritual content by using figures and characters and stories from history to make it very easy to grasp the philosophical and moral and spiritual content in the Veda. So there's a big linguistic difference between the Purana and the Veda. The linguistic difference is that the Purana's language is much more simple and flexible. And the Puranas, they get expanded by the narrators. Remember, the Vedas get expanded by having additional books written. The Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. The Puranas, they themselves just expand as the narrators narrate them. So this is why there's a distinction between Shruti and Smriti. Now, let's deal with an objection. Jiva Goswami deals with the objection that the Purana are not Vedic. They'll say the four Vedas, Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, those are the Vedas. Puranas are something else. You can see the language is totally different, and they were developed at a different point in time. The objector who says the Purana is not Veda will say the Upanishads are Veda. So here are quotes from those sources showing that the Puranas are Veda. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, Itihasa, and Purana arise with the exhalation of the Supreme. In fact, the verse is quite a bit longer. It lists many, many other things, including sutras, Upanishads. So this is a real problem for the people who say that the Puranas are not Vedic, but the Upanishads are Vedic. Because the Upanishads are mentioned here as something distinct from the Rig, Yaja, and so the Puranas are said to be equivalent to the Sutra, the Brahma Sutra, and the Upanishads. That this statement from Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad is clearly stating that the Puranas and Itihasa are just as much a part of the Veda as the Rig Veda and the Yajur Veda. The Veda, which had been created by Brahma and his sons, had become very, very misunderstood. So Vyas came and he created these four Samhitas and the Puranas in their seed form to make this Veda accessible again. And then he had all the sages elaborate on it to make it more and more clear. So they narrated the Puranas, they expanded them, they developed the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. But then he had this huge body of knowledge, which is with very apparently diverse conclusions. So then he went on and created the Brahma Sutra, where he tried to condense everything and harmonize it. But then it became too condensed and then easily misinterpreted or misconstrued just by messing up one little word or changing one little word. So then he wrote the Mahabharata, which has the Bhagavad Gita in it, to try to make the Brahma Sutra more clear and compelling, but then he went too far to that other side. So then finally he writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now what is it? Is it a Purana or is it a new work? Jiva Goswami explains that there's a Bhagavata Purana, which is one of the original 18 Puranas, which comes from Brahma's original Veda. That Bhagavata Purana was Vyasadev's favorite Purana. So at the end, when he wanted to get a marriage of the content of Brahma Sutra with the compelling clarity of Mahabharata, he thought, this Bhagavata Purana is pretty close already. I can revise that one. I can revise that Purana and expand it so that it explains the Brahma Sutra with the clarity and harmonizing ability of the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata. So the Srimad Bhagavatam does three things. It clearly and thoroughly, A, expresses the meaning of the Veda, B, elaborates on the Mahabharata, and C, makes the Brahma Sutra comprehensible. So these are the three claims that Jiva Goswami is making here. And because the Brahma Sutra summarizes the Veda, the whole Veda is basically saying consciousness is the origin of reality and is the purpose of reality. Reality is meant to be experienced by consciousness. Consciousness is the origin of reality. But we're going to go further in the Bhagavatam and bring out the points that there's Param Brahman. This is not something that the Bhagavatam invented, but it's clarifying it from the Upanishads, that there's Param Brahman, that Brahman is a light, but light has a source. Consciousness is a light, but what's the light source? It's the original consciousness. Vishnu is that Param Brahman, that's called a Param Brahman, and that's Vishnu. Vishnu literally means the consciousness which is everywhere. The consciousness which is the substrata for all other consciousness is Vishnu. That's the literal meaning. The ultimate conscious entity is the ultimate Janmadhyasya Yata. It's the ultimate cause and purpose of everything that exists. So Vishnu is the ultimate cause and purpose of everything that exists. And Krishna, which is Bhagavatam's special subject, Krishna is Vishnu with his own reason for being, with his own purpose. Consciousness produces reality so that it can experience reality and experience joy and happiness and pleasure. Krishna is consciousness doing just that. That entity, Krishna, is this supreme Vishnu. That Vishnu is the supreme Brahman. That Brahman is the source of everything. So Krishna is the source of everything. And the Bhagavatam explores this in full detail and explains who Krishna is in full detail. So the Bhagavatam therefore fully explains this statement, Janmadhyasyata. By explaining the thesis statement of the Brahma Sutra, the Bhagavatam fully explains the whole Brahma Sutra. Because books are not equivalent to knowledge. See, knowledge is pratyaksha. Knowledge is experience. Knowledge is knowing. By knowing something means you experience it. Aha, this is a hand. I know it. Know it means you can experience it. If you can't experience something, you don't fully know it. Knowledge comes down to experience, so books don't really contain knowledge. Consciousness contains knowledge. Books are a record of it which help transmit it. The books are a guide towards the knowledge. It's a transmission method for knowledge. But the book itself, or even an instruction itself, is not knowledge. Knowledge is when the instruction goes into your consciousness and becomes a part of your experience. So, it's not just enough to have a book or to have an instruction. You have to understand the book. You have to understand the instruction so that it goes into you and becomes a part of your experience. So this shows that you have to apply Anuman. Remember, going back to the first class, Anuman was the inference, the intellectual mental process. It's required in the educational system. You need to apply your intelligence to get educated. So we have an educational method descending from Shabda to Pratyaksha. The conduit from the Shabda to the Pratyaksha is the Anuman. The conduit from the instruction to the experience is the intellectual digestion of the instruction. So we have to apply Anuman, or logic and reasoning, to the Shabda, to the Shastra, to the flawless source of knowledge, to the educational source. whether it's to the instructions of a teacher or to the recorded version of that written in a book. It doesn't make any difference. You still have to apply your anuman. Until it's part of your experience, until it's part of what you see and smell and taste and feel, then it's not really knowledge. It hasn't become your knowledge.